started working at Bloomberg News in 1995 when it was a much smaller operation, and I covered Wall Street for about 15 years. And about 4 years ago, the editor-in-chief and I were having a conversation, a few other people had a conversation, and we kind of came to the conclusion that after keeping our heads down covering global financial meltdown, there were really no women in any stories that we wrote at Bloomberg. So that is somewhat facetious, but the reality is that we have made a very concerted effort in the last 4 years to improve how we see women as actors in the global economy in all Bloomberg journalism. It is a global effort. It is absolutely sponsored by Matt Winkler, who's our editor-in-chief, and we've really moved the needle on how we look at women in obviously politics, economics, government, business, markets, investing. All of these areas have women that have been somewhat under the radar from a journalist perspective just because they haven't necessarily been out there, they haven't necessarily been trained to speak to the press, and we at Bloomberg are very committed to making sure that we are telling a better version of what's happening in the global economy by virtue of making sure that women are included. So my job is to encourage that, and it's been very gratifying because I find that both men and women in our huge news organization that has about 2,400 people around the world are really into it, for lack of a better way of putting it. There's incredible goodwill from both men and women, young people, old people, older people, to think about how to include women into all of our coverage. So that's where I'm coming from, and I'm delighted to do events like this and also kind of generate more discussion around things like how women find capital to grow their businesses and other things. So I'm delighted tonight to have Kathryn Swintek here from Golden Seeds. I really encourage you to ask questions. We'll talk for about 20 minutes or so, and then we will open up the floor. So please feel free to ask anything that you that comes to mind. We'd love to have a really open discussion. So Kathryn, thanks for coming, and it's so nice to be here. Your background is in financial services. You are now overseeing fund management, for lack of a better way of putting it, for Golden Seeds. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got to this point and about your career?
Mm-hmm. So I started in commercial banking at the venerable Irving Trust Company. Some of you will remember that name, now BNY Mellon. And having studied in Vienna, Austria for a semester in college, I went into the foreign credit department and subsequently was a junior officer in the Middle East and Africa division, and the representative for France based in Paris. I lived in Paris for 5 years and was taught French before I went to Paris in 3 months, so I was at my, I would say 95% of my fluency when I got there, and I am still a fluent speaker of French and became a French citizen a few years ago. My husband is French. When I graduated from College of Mount St. Vincent with an economics degree, I went to New York University for my master's in business in finance, and worked in, again, the Middle East division, but subsequently joined Banque Nationale de Paris a few years after I got back from Paris, and headed their structured finance group, which included structuring debt for leveraged buyouts and project finance and securitization, and there were many other things that were added on over the years, including high yield capital markets and Latin America corporate finance. When BNP merged with Paribas in 2000, I was asked to start the global high yield bond group and hired a staff in London and New York, the other side of banking, if you will. For those of you in banking, you understand that never the twain shall meet, oftentimes between investment banking and fixed income equities. So I was an American, I was a woman, and I was from the wrong side of the bank, but I was asked to lead this effort, and we built it up to the number 4 banking in 2.5 years in Europe, and very successful. And I also ran the merchant banking group, which was structuring debt packages for leveraged buyouts. I left the bank in 2008. I was working in their London office at the time. I left in April of 2008, and you'll remember 2008. It was the financial crisis to end all crises. Lehman went bankrupt in September, and the kind of work I was doing required 24/7, 365 days a year, and it just seemed like it was a good time to take a breather. And I expected to do some board work, which I did, and then became involved in Golden Seeds a few years after that, initially as a managing director and member in the network, and then subsequently we raised a fund with third-party investors, and myself and 7 other people are general partners in this fund.
So Golden Seeds is an angel investment firm. You can make sure I've got my numbers right, but you are now a membership of about 300 people, which is the second largest angel firm in the U.S. And last year, you were the most active angel investor in the U.S. with about 10 million invested in about 60 companies. And the notion of this is that women support women. Can you tell us a little bit more about the women connection, how Golden Seeds evolved into this position, and who those members are, other than, people,
Sure.
A lot of people with banking careers, but other careers as well, I expect.
Yeah, so just one correction. We were the most active investor among angels last year. Over the 10 years of our existence, we've funded 60 companies and about $60 million. So last year, it would have been 12 companies. But Golden Seeds was started by a former banker, Stephanie Newby, out of JP Morgan. In 2004 and 2005, we made the first investment. So it started with 1 person, went to 2 people, literally just organic growth. And we now operate what we call forums in New York, Boston, and Silicon Valley. We have nuclei of members in Dallas also, and the Southeast and Tennessee. The members were 300 people, and that does make us the second largest angel network operating in the United States. Generally speaking, first of all, we're 80% women, and Golden Seeds does invest exclusively in women entrepreneurs. So we do require that a woman has a C-suite position, preferably CEO, and most of our investments have been in companies where the position held by the woman is CEO. And we also require that the woman has significant equity. A lot of times in business, when ownership is being meted out, the women don't get what they should.
So I'm going to go ahead and ask, what's significant equity to become a member of Golden Seeds? How much money do you need to?
Well, no, I mean, this is significant equity for the woman who is getting our investment.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But also your investors obviously have the resources to be...
Yeah, the investors must be accredited investors, so you know that means that you need to have $1 million of liquid net worth or $200,000 in annual earnings.
So also Golden Seeds does provide training services, education in how to invest in those kinds of things. How do people access that, and who really signs up for that, or how is that?
Yes, that's also something we realize that the people within our network who are generally cashed out entrepreneurs, semi-retired corporate executives from many different disciplines. It could be marketing, finance, it could be technology. Did not necessarily know how to assess an early stage company for investment. I mean, it's not something that, if you've been in the business world, you've necessarily come across. So we started a separate effort that we call our Knowledge Institute, and it has 4 modules of training. So obviously, 101, 201, so everything from, just the basics on up to exit strategies, how to create a capitalization table, figure out the what we call the pre-money valuation, which means what is that company valued at before the investment is being made, and that's kind of the one of the biggest negotiating points in this business.
So I want to make sure that I've got this number right, which is about 400 companies last year or a year come to you and say, here it is, I'd like some money from Goldstein.
Right.
And how does that process work in terms of you whittling that down to the 12 companies that you invest in? And how do your members connect with what the options are or collectively decide what to invest in?
We recently moved to a new online system which is called Proceeder. It's a company that created software with our design input. And the firm, Golden Seats, is generally run all online. So we, when somebody applies for capital from us, that is online. And there's, certain things in the application that must be completed. There's a new deal committee that reviews the applications after a staff member does a first vetting, so they can see if something clearly doesn't meet the requirements, and then there's a decision by a new deal committee after that. There's a certain number of companies, and it'll be approximately half of the companies who apply will be invited to a screening that we hold once a month in 10 months out of the year in each of Boston, Silicon Valley, and New York. And members will, at their option, attend that screening meeting. And it's a 10-minute presentation by the entrepreneur, 10 minutes Q&A, and then we gather. There's usually 3 separate rooms because of the volumes that we're dealing with, and we'll gather at the end of that process. It's usually about 3 hours dedicated to the presentations, and determine, have an open discussion, where's the most interest, what are some of the, what we view as barriers to ultimately making an investment, because we don't want the entrepreneur to, pursue with us over a period of months if, in fact, there's something that we can know now we're not going to make the investment. And
so how many, in that 3 hours, how many presentations are there? And how many investors are there?
There would be, 6 presentations generally, but there's 3 rooms, so kind of 18, so anywhere from 15 to 20. And companies will present to us, And
have you seen the show Shark Tank?
I've only seen it once. The numbers are a lot smaller.
Like.
The numbers, we're a lot friendlier. We're a lot friendlier.
I think that's because you're all women.
I'll come back to that. There's a professor at the University of New Hampshire, Jeffrey Soll, that does research specifically on that topic.
Let's talk to that in a moment. Venture capital, and you and I, when we spoke on the phone, we talked about making sure that, we understand the difference between a sort of venture capital, which sounds like the same kind of business for those of us on the outside of it, and what actually angel investing is. Other than angel investing being, I think, fair to say, smaller amounts, what is the difference in philosophy? Is it big? It's maybe more risk to be an angel investor? What do you think?
No, angel investors are generally individual investors, so they will come together as a group to evaluate companies, to source entrepreneurs who are looking for capital. Many of them do individual due diligence. At Golden Seeds, we do group due diligence, so there will be anywhere from 5 to 10 members who will come together and produce what we call an investment banking style deal memo at the end of that process. And, so covering everything from business model to marketing, go-to-market strategy, technology, patents, again, it depends on the industry that they're in. The angels are investing out of their own personal net worth. Venture capital will generally be investing on behalf of third parties. There are about over 200,000, an estimated over 200,000 active angel investors in the United States, and about 12,000 or so who are members of angel groups. There are about, on average, 60,000 companies that get angel investments in any given year, and the average investment size is like 300,000, 400,000. The aggregate of investments made by angels in any given year in venture capital is about the same. It's been running about the same at about 20 billion a year. But venture capital makes about 5,000 to 10,000 investments in any given year, and they'll be putting out 4 million or above in any given deal.
Right.
So
let's get to the type of companies. I mean, again, to go back to 400, whittling it down to 12. Tell me can you give us some examples of some companies that, and now that we have this explanation of the Shark Tank situation, can you give us a sense of what it feels like? Are there aha moments, or you're like, yeah, this one's for sure? Can you give us a sense of what kind of companies are most interesting to the group, or what you've invested in?
Yeah, we've invested mostly in technology companies, so almost half of the dollars and about 35% of the numbers have gone into technology over the period of our 9 years of investing. We also invest in life science companies, so that's both medical devices and in drug discovery companies, and about 15% of the dollars and about 20% of the numbers have gone into life sciences. Consumer products, generally it's going to be e-commerce or something that's tech-enabled as opposed to the next snack food company. We have not done those, and that's about a quarter both in dollars and in numbers. In terms of an aha moment, that's going to be more actually around the entrepreneur herself, and there are very few of them. It's interesting. So you may have somebody who has a great experience, but maybe lacking that passion, that drive. And then there are others who have an incredible passion, and you just know will find a way to get their result, even if they don't on paper have all of
Can you give us
the
an example?
experience. Yeah, I mean there's one who came in who does stand out. Who was bound and determined to start a new kind of market research company. And we've seen a few of those. She's young, she's mid to late 20s maximum. And she did some research about what she should expect, and she spoke to people who, were giving her indications of value that were kind of well beyond what you would reasonably get at least in the New York market, but she thought, well, other people have gotten this. So, we did pursue a due diligence with her, went back and forth on that. What is the company worth before we make the investment? Ended up whittling down the amount that she would take. That's another thing. The companies who come to us are going to generally be looking for $1 million to $3 million, sometimes a little less, for what we call the A round, so the first preferred stock round that's being done. And she didn't get all her money, but she did get some of it. She kept looking, and ended up raising, she was originally looking for $1.2 million. We thought 800,000 would do it. She was going to accept a 350,000 convertible note, and ended up getting 750,000. And she's had her product partially built because she didn't get all of the capital. And this is June, so I mean a short 6 months later she's back and she's looking for $3 million at a $12 million pre-money valuation. I mean, it's kind of amazing.
And how's the product?
She's made some progress. Again, it's a market research product. I think that's a high number, obviously, many people do, but she's one of those people that, you're going to look at the business model, the go-to-market strategy. She's selling to enterprises, a lot of the companies that are selling to enterprises. It's a long sales cycle, so we've seen plenty of projections showing that, they'll conclude these sales with these many companies in this compressed period of time, and it doesn't happen that way. They think somebody took their meeting, so they're like, all right, this is a 90% probability, and you're like, well, and 6 months later they're still at it because, they got through 1 door and 2 doors, but they actually have to get through 10 doors, if not 20, so. But,
everybody's learning.
She's one of those people, she will be successful, she just will. So you may not want to do that particular deal because that particular company may not be the best investment, but you do want to watch her and, do her next thing or get in on this company at the right time. Because another thing that happens in our business is that for venture overall, 75% of the investments don't return investors' money. It's a risky early stage investment market. And companies, if you need 20 million, let's say, to get to what we call cash flow break even, so where obviously your sales are covering your expenses, you don't raise that 20 million today. You start with $1 million, $2 million, $3 million that gets you what we call a runway of 12 to 18 months. Then you go back and you raise the next tranche again. It'll be, and the reason that you don't want to raise more than a 12 to 18, call it 2-year runway, is that you're giving up ownership at that valuation. But if things don't turn out as you expected and you convinced your first investor they would turn out, then when you need the next tranche or the one after that and you really need it and things haven't worked out exactly as you expected, then the new investors coming in will say, I'll give you the $5 million that you need, but it's going to be at a valuation that might be half what the prior investors invested. So that's another time to potentially come in.
So when you're looking at, you obviously had a long career in a business that was fairly male-dominated, shall we say? Perhaps the banking world, you were sometimes finding yourself in the minority in the room, I expect. How does it differ to be getting presentations from women? How are women approaching this differently? How are some of these things that we hear about in the lean-in movement with regard to women asking for stuff and women's ability to negotiate? What is your experience with the comparison between men and women?
Okay, so women's ability to negotiate. We're at a law firm, Hodgson, Russ. Get a good lawyer on your side, right? That's the first step. Hire a good lawyer. Again, I
So women
mentioned,
don't come in with their good lawyers and guys do it?
you know, sure, the successful ones do.
Right.
You know, I mentioned Jeffrey Saul at the University of New Hampshire earlier. He's doing research on the venture capital industry and the angel capital industry, and and he started looking in 2004 at the amount or the proportion of capital that women were getting, and it was astonishingly low. In 1998, it was 1.7% of all venture dollars went to women. And in '04, he started tracking the percentage of women who are venture capital investors. And that's been rising. I mean, it was about 5% in 2004, and it's in the mid-teens now. It was in the high teens a few years ago, but after the crisis, I think it dropped back. So it's around 16% or so. And there is a very, very high correlation between the percentage of women who are venture capitalists and the percentage of women asking for capital. So to your point, Lisa, on the lean in, you know, asking, et cetera, one of the very interesting things that he found was that when women asked for capital from male venture capitalists, they were not declined more than men were. But, you know, it's just they didn't ask in the same proportion that men did. And again, there's a very high correlation between having more women on this side of the table so that women do feel more comfortable asking for capital.
So I have a lot of questions, but I want to have everyone else have a chance to ask questions too. One last thing though, it is Marketing Week in New York, and we talked with Nancy about thinking about how to apply this to these ideas of marketing, and the thing that arose for us is, you know, again, it's a little bit related to the conversation we're already having. If you were giving advice to folks in the room, what is the most effective way to market what your business or your idea is to a group of investors from Golden Seeds? How do you present yourself? Are there any, you know, sort of golden rules of getting to the next stage?
Things are decided on a 10-minute presentation and 10-minute Q&A. So if you know, that is key. You need to have a presentation that describes what your business model is, you know, what your go-to-market strategy is, what is unique about your product or service, you know, whether or not what the barriers to entry are. So if you have patents pending, whatever it might be, you need to describe those things. You know, we've all seen the projections. I don't know if I've seen any company that meets their projections, but in 10 minutes, you need to, you know, cogently speak about your business model and your go-to-market strategy. Those are two, you know, very important things that, you know, capture the interest of the investors, and then, of course, in the Q&A, be a master of your business, you know, obviously.
So if a lot of those are tech companies, and this is maybe not directly related, but are you seeing a change in how people are thinking about marketing themselves or how they're presenting their business plans with regard to new tech products, social media, that kind of stuff? Right? Have you seen a change in the last few years in terms of how people think about either presenting their product or the products that they are, how they plan to market their products?
Well, we have seen a change because Golden Seeds has grown so much. I mean, we're now, again, the second largest angel investment network in the United States, and we do a lot of transactions. The angel investment market is also a syndicated market, so it's rare that you will have one only angel investor in any given company. There's going to be a group of angels in any given company. But with the passage of time, we've gone from, in 2005 and 6, companies that might have been heavily consumer product oriented and more the next snack food kind of thing, to more of, again, today, about 50% of our dollars are invested in tech companies. And so that's everything from a company that has an online service to train companies how to use specialized software products, to a company who is offering highly specialized information to both companies, as well as it could be sports leagues, sports teams, about their effectiveness in social media marketing. So, you have a lot of effort going into social media marketing. Why did some of your competitor get a lot more hits than you did? Did they, what words did they use? What time of day did they put out the message? And also evaluating the link between what they are doing in social media marketing and the dollars that the consumer is then spending with the company.
So you're having to learn along the way as all of this changes.
Yes, and we're now looking, we always have been, but we're looking for companies that are in markets. I mean, they're disruptive companies, so if they're disruptive, that means that there is not a direct competitor, but everybody obviously has competitors, either known or future unknown, and as well as future. But we're looking for billion-dollar markets, so billion-dollar opportunities. The company may not grow to $1 billion in revenues, but there has to be, the potential for, or that they're addressing a market that has $1 billion in it.
Okay, well, thank you so much for answering so many questions for me. Let me start here. I'm sorry, I can't
Lainey.
your name. Lainey, go
I
ahead.
have two questions for you. One is, what do you attribute your unbelievable growth to get to the point that you are? And do you ever invest in social enterprises?
Social enterprises, no, it has to be a
For-profit.
Yeah, a for-profit, and something that we think is going to be a very attractive return. But that's not to say that we don't invest in clean tech or something that is solving a problem as well. So the double bottom line type of thing can be of interest. Our growth is it's, I think, back to the principles of good management. So we offer the Knowledge Institute, so the investor training, so that people who are otherwise very accomplished business people and have a lot to offer in terms of assessing an opportunity can feel comfortable in making decisions when it comes to putting dollars on the bottom line, and other things where we're engaging our members. So we have monthly forums. We always have a speaker at the beginning of the forum, so education related, and our members then refer other members, prospective members, as well as entrepreneurs to us. So, you want both. You want the members who are there to put out the dollars, And that's facilitated by the way that we conduct our group, our network, which is the group due diligence. So instead of using a network just to get inbound requests that an individual investor can assess and choose to go into or not on his or her own, we help our investors to select the investments by forming these due diligence teams with people who bring something specific knowledge. So we do a number of life science investments, and we have a number of people within our network who have great life science experience. So we can put out more dollars because let's say you have somebody who has marketing experience. Well, they might have seen a presentation by a life sciences entrepreneur and they might be interested. They don't have direct knowledge, but they're part of that group. They can
So
read.
this is really the power of the network.
Yeah, they
that
can read
there's shared
online
knowledge, right?
the deal memo and make an investment. So we can generate more investable dollars out of our network because of that. And then you get more entrepreneurs because the entrepreneur says, oh, you should go. And then I think the other thing is we are not only the second largest angel network in the States, but we're by far and away the largest focusing exclusively on women. So if a woman has a company that is seeking capital, the chances of somebody saying to her, you should go to Golden Seeds is very high. But, it started with putting the dollars out,
I have two questions. One is, are most of your angels women?
80% are women.
And does an angel ever decide to give seed money to a project that's been rejected by you?
Yes.
So
Yes.
sometimes there's
Yeah, I mean,
Connection or
you
an
can be
interest.
interested and maybe the network isn't going to do an investment as the network, but
But
yes.
certainly these connections are made, relationships
Yes.
are forged. Interesting.
But, you want, if you have the due diligence available to you from the firm, it's always, doing due diligence on your own is easy.
Go ahead.
Hi, can you talk on the state of the tech market in New York and how the growth compares to what's going on in Silicon Valley?
Well, Silicon Valley is still, very, very advanced relative to New York because the ecosystem has been up and running for much longer. But we're very pleased with what we're seeing in tech. Google came here, Facebook came here. IBM Watson is here. So IBM put their Watson project and staff here in New York City. As we know, Technion and Cornell are forming the university on Roosevelt Island. So we're very excited about what we see on tech. We would like to see more women in tech in New York because we have even more dollars to put out. But, we do a fair amount in Silicon Valley as well.
In terms of return on investment from a Golden Seeds perspective, knowing that probably every deal is going to be different depending on risk, what's the average percentage that you guys typically will take off of the deal that you're investing in?
Anywhere from the ownership stake that we're going to anywhere from 20 to 40%.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Nadia Hrudinska, and my question is following up to her question. What is the average return? And the next thing, when you make decisions, you work with ideas and talent, which are nebulous. What are the top 3 things you're looking to make decision, and how you deal if you are wrong?
Okay, so average return, we don't have average returns because it's a network and people have done different deals. As far as the top 3 things, I mean, it's the first thing is going to be who. It's who. Do we think this entrepreneur has the passion? Do they have integrity? Are they Are they coachable? We look closely at that. We're a group of angel investors. We're putting our money into this company. We have a lot of experience. If somebody is otherwise very good but not coachable, we will not make the investment. Because, kind of shows that, you're digging a hole, you just keep digging it deeper when you have, expertise around the table that could, help you out. The other thing that we are looking for is the big idea. So something that's, again, disruptive, not a same old me too, something really unique and something that's got that $1 billion market potential. That's key.
Thank you.
If you're tapping the $1 billion market, that means that you would have a board of directors. So how does one market themselves to be on the board, whether in network or out of network?
Generally, we require that there would be at minimum a 5-person board. 2 of the seats would be taken by the preferred stock investors, and that's the kind of investment that we and other angels make, generally in preferred stock. Sometimes, again, in convertible notes that convert into preferred, but preferred stock. 2 seats are generally taken by the founder, and including the CEO. So, and the 5th seat would be an independent director. In terms of opportunities, generally speaking, the documents for the transaction call for the preferred stock to get 2 seats. We do require a board seat, so one of those 2 preferred seats must go to a Golden Seeds nominated person. The other seat may also go to Golden Seeds, but we like it to also be taken by a fellow investor in the deal if they've invested enough. If we've invested $2 million and they did $200,000, then no, we'll probably take both seats. In terms of the opportunities for board service, if you're not in the network, it's the expertise that we're looking for. So whatever the company is, will depend on, what talents or background,
Is there
experience.
a preference for male or female candidates for the boards? Not a preference, but are you looking for women to be on these boards?
That's not a criteria, but because 80% of our network of investors are women, the chances that the nominee will be a woman are high, but we do have, again, 20% of our investors are men, and
So, sorry, just to clarify, that 5th board seat then that comes from Golden Seeds, that would be a Golden Seeds member or
Okay.
somebody also recommended by someone at Golden
okay,
Seeds?
so the 5th board seat is an independent director that would specifically not come from Golden Seeds.
Oh, okay.
So 2 preferred stock investors, of which 1 Golden Seeds, 2 for the founder, of which one of would be the CEO, and then a 5th independent person who brings some industry. Usually it's an industry expertise.
Let me go to the back. Nancy?
2 quick questions. Number 1, Tennessee, because I think that you mentioned many of your members are from the Tennessee area, out of all, Boston, whatever. And then the second one is, over the years, I'm wondering if you could share with us one of your favorites that passed through the Golden Seeds door and that you really feel has already, sort of hit the ground, or you have great faith that it's going to happen?
So Tennessee is, again, back to our members refer other members. And, it's all these connections, and we're really very fortunate. Our members have some great backgrounds at some top companies in many fields. So it's members having a good experience and referring other members. In terms of a company that would stand out, you know, there are so many, but let me mention one. It's Cognition Therapeutics, and it's an Alzheimer discovery company, drug discovery company, based in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and it was started by a woman scientist, Susan Catalano, who moved from California, Southern California, to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, because Pennsylvania had the most generous package of state funding available to startups in what she was doing. They are researching small molecules to, address the onset of Alzheimer's and then even to reverse it, and the research is going exceedingly well. But we really have to hand it to Susan Catalano for, and she's, has a family in Southern California and was so dedicated to solving this problem, which is, as we know, a huge problem. So it's also actually a very good example of doing well by doing good, because, we all know somebody who has had Alzheimer's, and the company deserves to be very successful, and we're very pleased that.
So how does she scale up a company like that? When was the original investment? How big is it now? It was money where she could build a lab or hire more people.
Right. So to continue the research, so they're in mice right now, and actually they are. Not in mice, because I think mice don't get, so she's in animal, and mice don't get Alzheimer's, animal testing. And the way to scale up is that you need to go through human trials, and that's a very long process, but that's an example of something where you will partner up with a pharma company at the appropriate time to continue with the funding. And they, in fact, just won a competitive NIH grant for $1.4 million, based upon, the progress of the research. So, there's grant money and pharma money and venture money.
Oh, that's exciting. Yes?
I was wondering, what is the obligation of the business owner in the event of an investment and it's not successful? Is there an obligation financially to the investors?
So what is the obligation of the business owner if the investment does not work out as expected? If the business owner is on the board, they will share, along with the other board members, a obligation to pay any unpaid employee liabilities. But that would be the obligation.
But the investment risk is the investment risk, and company doesn't go, that's golden seeds.
Well, as well as this person, I mean,
Right.
it's the entrepreneur who comes to us for funding would have already put in their life savings, and that's also important. So part of, the three things that you look at, who's the entrepreneur, including what, if they're coming to you for money and they're paying themselves a big salary, that's like, no. If they're coming to you for money and they're existing on ramen noodles, yes, and they've invested an appropriate amount of their own capital, so they will lose their investment. And then again, if they're on the board, they would have an obligation to pay any unpaid employee liabilities. And then they have the reputation, of course.
So with those dismal numbers of, the women-led businesses getting access to capital or applying for the capital, was 1.7%?
Yes, back in 1998, yes.
Okay, so hopefully it's better than that, but are there, what sort of initiatives are in place with Golden Seeds in terms of I guess, the next generation to increase that pool? Is there, any sort of, not necessarily working with Girl Scouts of America, for example, but is there something more with women's colleges where there is more of that, listen, we're here, we have money, we want to invest, come to us, but kind of reaching them potentially at an earlier stage where they might, instead of going down the road of becoming an attorney, no offense, they're all important, right? We'll talk later. But, maybe where it's taking on a venture, taking on some risk.
Yeah, I mean, the entrepreneurs who are out looking to finance their businesses will have a list of a lot of different angels that they can go to through the Angel Capital Association or just their networks, your local, Chamber of Commerce, your, any local business development, because everybody, angel capital investment equals jobs. So any, community wants to encourage entrepreneurship. That's out there, in a very meaningful way. And as far as Golden Seeds is concerned, the best thing we can do is to grow our membership and to do what we're doing to educate our members on how to assess, an early stage investment opportunity and to then invest their dollars. And then the person who's looking for capital, if it's a young woman, the likelihood that somebody's gonna say, try Golden Seeds is very high, at this point. So, because,
More organic and.
yeah, because it happens that for our Knowledge Institute, we did conduct that training at some colleges. And we will do that on a case-by-case basis if there's a group, it's a service, a paid service that we do offer.
So I have one last question and then I'll pass it off to Nancy. Do the Golden Seeds investees know each other? Do you do anything to
Yes.
build the community among the people who have been funded by
Yes.
you, and how
Yes.
does that work?
Yeah, we have formal programs for our CEOs. So we have a monthly CEO newsletter and, report on things that are, in our market as well as wins by them, to inform each other. We have an innovation summit every year in January where all of our portfolio companies present and meet each other and do the dine-arounds and
So there's a big network that's developing
yes.
also over time.
Right, and then we have training for our CEOs. We had something that we called Coach to Exit that we ran for a couple of years, and we're working on the successor to that because some of them have already received that training, and you want to innovate and do some new things that are of value. So we're working on that now, where they get into a room, whether it's 10 or 20 in any given session, and get some additional education from us.
Have any Golden Seeds companies gone public?
No, they haven't gone public. No, they've been sold to
Not yet.
companies. Yeah.